I'm totally unfit to be a mother, but I'm having me another baby. What you gonna do about it? Idiocracy predicted the future. Hey there, Mr. Redder here. And the one who's been running through your dreams all night. Me. Yeah, maybe if they're nightmares. You're the one that looks like Casper the Friendly Ghost Dad, Reddit boy. Our first story we'll be reading today. I told my sister-in-law I'll disown her if she gets pregnant. I, 33 female, live with my brother who's 32 and his new wife who's 34. Things have been fine to a point, and I definitely appreciate them taking me in during my time of need. That's not lost on me. I recognize they didn't have to help me, and I'm incredibly thankful that they've done that. But my sister-in-law has baby fever, and she's talking about trying to get pregnant. First of all, I know my brother had the snip after his divorce from his first wife. He would have to have the procedure reversed, and his insurance will not cover it. And to be frank, they cannot afford that. Part of why they allowed me to move in was because they're in financial trouble, and I'm contributing quite a lot of money to the bills right now. I cover probably 2/3 of all of the bills because my sister-in-law doesn't work, and my brother pays an ungodly amount of child support to his ex-wife. The financial issues can go ahead and be another point in the discussion. My sister-in-law can also barely take care of herself. She sleeps most of the day. She does not clean, she does not cook, she doesn't take care of the kids she already has. Her daughter is 6 years old, and she doesn't even interact with her unless she has to. That's a totally separate issue. I've become a live-in maid and nanny on top of working 45 or more hours a week. My sister-in-law lost custody of her other kid about 2 years ago. He's 11 and he lives with family now. I do not know why she even lost custody, but she did not fight to get him back. 2 days ago, my brother told me he has an appointment to meet with his doc to discuss the reversal so him and sister-in-law can try for a baby. I told them they were out of their minds. It got explosive, and I finally asked who was going to take care of a baby when my brother works full-time, I work full-time, and she constantly makes excuses to not even do basic things around the house, like take the dog outside. She really had the nerve to tell me, "I thought you could handle them when you get off of work, before your brother gets home, so the load is evenly distributed." I blew up. I told her I'm not going to be a parent to another one of her kids, and that if they really do this, then I'm totally done and they're on their own. I told my brother I would always love him and help him if he needs me, but that I would never talk to sister-in-law and make sure the rest of the family disowns her too. I think I was probably the jerk for saying that the way I did. She started crying and locked herself in the bedroom. My brother is threatening to kick me out, and again, I might be the jerk for this. I told him he can't afford to kick me out, and he can't afford a replacement maid/nanny like I have been. I told our mom about what happened, and she not only thinks I'm not the jerk, but is now mad at my brother. Our dad, however, said I am the jerk because it isn't my place to say anything about my brother's decisions. So Reddit, am I the jerk? Edit. 1. I moved in over a year ago when I was down on my luck and unemployed. The conditions for me moving in was that I help around the house until I was back on my feet. Their financial situation changed though, and they asked me to stay, which is why I've been living with them this long. What I did not expect was to get almost 100% of the workload in the home in addition to working longer hours than my brother. We've had multiple conversations about how I felt it was unfair that I do so much, and my sister-in-law said they helped me, so I'm obligated to help now. Had I known this would be thrown in my face, I would have rather been homeless. 2. I chose to be child-free, but I love my stepniece, and leaving at this point would hurt her the most. The authorities have been called many times, not even by myself, but their friends and my brother's ex-wife because they feel my niece was being neglected. My ex-sister-in-law specifically said mistreatment and that she had even witnessed it in the past. My niece is definitely troubled. She has a therapist. I'm really limited on what I can do when people who are supposed to help just won't. 3. I'm still reading the comments. I will reply as I can. I was fully prepared going into this story to say you were the jerk, but after reading it, not the jerk. Your dad's right. It shouldn't be your business, but they made it that way because they're including you in their childcare plans. If she wants another kid so bad, why not work at getting the kid she already has and lost custody of back? You need to get out of this living situation and detangle yourself from them. Before your brother can kick you out, find yourself a tiny apartment so you can watch the inevitable disaster from a safe distance. Not the jerk, but get out now. You're already paying and working far too much for this household, and you're enabling a lazy parent. Without you, their dumb marriage will hopefully implode before he gets his vasectomy reversed. OP. I've decided I'm going to move. I have a coworker who's moving at the end of July, and the landlord there is looking for a new tenant. I make more than enough right now, so she's putting me in contact with him. It's a small studio apartment, but it's a very short commute. I don't know how to tell my brother I'm leaving because even though I am really mad still, he's my family, and I know moving will put him in a rough spot. I'm also worried about my stepniece, so I'm figuring out what I can do about that. People have recommended talking to a mandated reporter and recording any mistreatment, so I think that's what I'm going to do. To the people asking what my brother sees in her, truthfully, I'm not sure. I suspect his pride is in the way, due to him jumping into a new marriage right after his divorce, and he doesn't want to admit that it did not go as planned. Someone else said it might be a Band-Aid baby, and that sounds accurate enough. My brother swears that he's happy, but I've never seen him this miserable before. He's always upset about the financial situation, and if anything, sister-in-law makes it so much worse because she's always buying stuff. She has him very far in debt, and they eat fast food almost all the time because they don't like to cook. As to what sister-in-law does all day, when I say nothing, I really mean nothing. She has no hobbies, she just sits on her phone all day. She's definitely mentally ill, but she lies about a lot, so I don't know what's true and what isn't. Not the jerk. There's nothing scarier than a mother who has lost custody of one of her kids getting pregnant with another. Nope, nope, nope. Malicious compliance by all the students caused the whole school to reek. This is an old story I had forgotten about until just now. The nostalgia. It happened when I was in middle school, about 2010. A bit of context. I live in an old rural town, not in the US. The only middle school in this town used to be a nursery, the kind where plants and trees are grown or sold, not a medical nursery. Most of the trees weren't cut down when the place became a school, and a few of them were fruit trees. 3 or 4 of them were mango trees. Us kids loved taking them home by the bunches to enjoy with our families or eating them during lunch and breaks. Occasionally, some kids would try throwing rocks or sticks at the tree branches to make some mangoes fall. One of the teachers didn't like this. Understandably, throwing rocks could be dangerous, but nobody was throwing them at each other, and they were careful looking around for any people passing by so as to not hurt anyone. The most logical thing to do would have been to forbid students from throwing things at trees, but instead, the school passed a rule that any student caught picking up mangoes, whether they were on the floor or trying to get them from the trees, would get in trouble or even face suspension. We all thought it was a dumb idea, but me and a few other students could smell the eventual disaster from a mile away. So nobody protested and everyone at school agreed to comply, even the kids who were known to be rebellious. Well, about a month or so later, the whole school was absolutely stinking of rotten mangoes. And for those of you who don't know, mango season usually peaks during early spring and late summer. Plus, in the state we're in, rainy season hits in the summer. So imagine old rotting mangoes and muddy water puddles that sits for days at a time. And the summer heat, not a good combination of smells. The teachers by that point told us that if we see a mango in good condition that can be eaten, we could pick it up. But we couldn't possibly break the new rule that was imposed by a respectable teacher. We must obey like the good students we are. The school had to pay a cleanup crew to dump all of the rubbish, and some of the parents, my mom included, complained about the wastefulness of perfectly edible fruit. The next school year, we were all enjoying delicious mangonadas, which is a mango-flavored ice pop with a spicy sweet sauce, under the lovely shade and those good old summer breezes. These ice pops were made and sold by a classmate. The teacher that had originally started the complaints was a loyal customer. The time my Christian school didn't like my t-shirt. So I just remembered this after talking about high school with a friend, and it jogged my memory. So I went to a Christian high school. Of course, they accepted people of every faith. They weren't that kind of Christian school you sometimes hear about. Well, one day when I was in year 9, maybe 10, I'm in the UK by the way, so ages 13 to 15, we got invited to go on a Christian retreat, which is basically a bunch of students who signed up for it, going to a building like a big sleepover, going hiking, obviously talking about religion, and generally having a good time. Now something to note, I was, and quite frankly still am, an emo, so I was listening to a lot of different bands and singers that wouldn't be considered Christian. Anyway, me and about 15 other students signed up for this retreat. Most of us weren't religious, but it was a good time to get away from things. It was only a couple hours away from our school, but the mountains and greenery made it so peaceful. Well, on the first day there, we got asked to come into the hall, introduce ourselves, and talk about what was going on. Then they decided to have a little fun. I want us to go around and talk about our t-shirts and share why we wore them, said one of the Christian ladies. No one put their hand up to volunteer, so she started picking on people. She picked one guy who had a generic t-shirt on, and he was reluctant to say anything. "Come on now, talk about why you wore your t-shirt and what it means to you. You've got to do it. It's a fun little icebreaker." The boy awkwardly said that he wore it because he liked the band and the color that it was. Then she saw my friendly face. Not kidding. Even though I was an emo, I was super smiley. She said, "Oh, you. Would you like to tell us what's on your t-shirt and why you wore it? Come on, show us all how it's done." Oh well, she did ask for it. I'm wearing a band t-shirt because I like listening to their music." "And what does that writing say?" Going to heck?" Silence. Well, needless to say, we did not continue playing that icebreaker game, and from then on, they didn't really like me. Still had some fun though. Am I the jerk for refusing to help my wife and her friend anymore over what my wife calls a miscommunication? Fake names. My wife, Emily, has a longtime friend, Leslie, who has recently become a single mother. Leslie does not have a working vehicle at the moment and is working 2 jobs, so Emily took it upon herself to help Leslie out as much as she can. Emily had started asking me to help out as well in driving Leslie and her kids around, taking them to school and appointments, taking Leslie to the grocery store, etc., whenever Emily or someone else couldn't. I agreed since it made my wife happy, and I understand the kind of situation Leslie is in. Helping has turned into Emily inviting Leslie and her kids over often, or organizing trips that they would like, such as camping or fishing. A few times, my wife was unable to attend these get-togethers she organized due to work and insisted they still take place, leaving me to entertain Leslie and her kids on my own. Since I've known of Leslie my entire relationship with my wife, I didn't think too much about this. The times that it has been me left with her or sent in Emily's stead to shuttle Leslie around, I've made normal small talk with her and the kids. Recently, Leslie's kids were going to be away for a weekend, so Emily wanted to have Leslie over for dinner and some movies. She asked me to text Leslie to ask her over, and when I did, Leslie replied with, "Just as friends, right? I'm not interested in being anyone's girlfriend." I thought that response was out of left field, so I asked her why she'd even say that, and her response was pretty much, "No guy would be asking me and my kids how we're doing or helping me out unless he wanted something in return." I told Leslie it wasn't anything like that, and then showed my wife the conversation and informed her I would be stepping back from helping her with anything involving Leslie, and to leave me out of any future plans. I also offered to show her the rest of my phone and anything else. Emily believed me, but she still talked to Leslie about it to see what had given her that impression, and accordingly, she gave Emily the same answer. A few days later, Leslie apologized to Emily and told her that her emotions and mine were just all over because of a down day. That's fine, but I'm still not willing to help her or my wife out anymore, as I had been, because I don't want any repeats or accusations hurled at me when I was just helping as my wife had asked. Emily thinks I'm overreacting and should just brush it off because it was just a silly miscommunication that she had had on a bad day. Am I the jerk? Additional info. The text I sent Leslie about the night was, "Emily wants to know if you'd like to come over for dinner and some movies on Saturday." That's why her response was so out of left field. I sent the text because Emily was busy on her phone and wanted to know ASAP so we could make our weekend plans. Not the jerk. Cringe friend. Could have gone a lot worse. Do not help her unless your wife is around. Ew, Leslie. Her mentality that men and women can't be friends without ulterior motives is disgustingly gross on its own, much less about her friend who had been helping her out's husband. Not the jerk. I noticed she didn't apologize to you. She accused you of trying to cheat on your wife. That is no small thing to overlook. Not the jerk. She's ruined a good thing for herself that your kindness was offering. Not the jerk. To be fair, your wife shouldn't have put you in those positions to begin with. Her friend saying what she did makes me concerned that she was developing feelings for you, which would be completely understandable as she's in a vulnerable place and you were stepping up to help her. If it was me, I'd steer clear and let them do their own thing. Why does everyone think this girl was looking for trouble? She was setting boundaries, which is what I would have been doing as well. I would have thought it totally bizarre that my girlfriend's husband was just showing up on his own to do stuff with me. I think the wife has gone completely overboard and put the husband and friend in an awkward situation. She's probably relieved he stopped showing up. There is being supportive, and then there's getting way too involved. As the husband, I would have refused to be volunteered to do all of that stuff. I'd say Leslie is testing the waters to see if a bit of fun with her friend's husband is actually a possibility. Not the jerk. Stay away. Well, what do you think? Is Leslie a jerk or not? Please let us know. I know my opinion will be unpopular, but I think she totally had the right to make sure that he wasn't looking for anything more with her, but I don't know, maybe it's just me. Yeah, I don't feel like she was accusing him of anything, she was just making sure that he wasn't trying to, bow chicka wow wow. Pretty much. But to be honest, if I had been homeboy, I would have been like, I can keep a secret if you can. Am I the jerk for taking away my daughter's driving privileges after finding out she's using 2 feet? I'm 37, female, and my daughter, who's 16, is in the process of navigating the roads as a new driver. She began studying for and got her permit when she was 15 and had since been receiving driving lessons from my ex-husband, who's 40. She passed her driving test, written and physical portion, and is an outstanding student, so my ex and I decided to gift her a car on her 16th birthday after receiving her license. Growing up, my dad was the one who taught me and my siblings how to ride a bike and later how to drive. It's a fond memory I have of him, so I decided to let her father handle the driving lessons and teaching business, so they could have that as well. Apparently, during these lessons, my daughter started off by using both of her feet, right foot for the gas, left for the brake. She continued to drive this way for a while, even passing her test this way. Apparently, when my ex-husband found out about this, he brought it up to her and asked her to correct it, but she argued that she had been driving this way since she started and that reverting to the normal way would be potentially dangerous, and that she is uncomfortable doing so. So my ex-husband just dropped it. I, however, was extremely concerned when I found this out, via her dad during casual conversation. I asked him if he thought this was appropriate, and he said he saw nothing wrong and that she was a good driver. I disagreed and told him this was unsafe and that I would be having a chat with our daughter once she arrived home from school. She did. I asked her to sit down, and I tried to explain to her the dangers of what she's doing, wear and tear on the brakes, potentially pressing the wrong pedal in a split-second emergency situation, not to mention the higher chance of having your foot on the brake the entire time, which is not only annoying to other drivers, with them not being able to know whether you're actually braking or not, and again, dangerous. I asked her to please take these points into consideration and change her method of driving, to which she argued the only real danger would be forcing her to switch to using only one foot for both pedals after driving for this way for so long. I told her she has only been driving for about a year more or less, and the way she learned with 2, she could learn with 1, to which she flat out refused. After our conversation and her refusal, I took her keys, and I told her I would be taking her to school from now on, and wherever else she needs to go as well. She was upset and called her dad, who told her to tell me that I'm the jerk and I'm being controlling. He reminded me that her driving record is fine the way she's driving thus far, but it's only been a year, and she will resent me for this. So, am I the jerk? I don't want to come off as controlling, and I definitely don't want my daughter to resent me over this. I'm genuinely concerned for her safety over this, and I'm not sure what to do now. Edit to add, the car is an automatic. I'm certain that if the person she took her driving test with knew she was driving this way, she wouldn't have passed it, at least not in my area. I had a friend drive like that and got told to fix their feet before the car even started moving. End of story, not the jerk. This is an idiotic way of driving. Edit. Seems like lots of other people have similar experiences, and even though this isn't a law, it seems pretty obviously frowned upon. Given that you try to talk to her, you're not the jerk. Clearly this needs more conversation though. Continue talking, calmly and respectfully. But yeah, that's super dangerous. Am I the jerk for telling one of my good friends I wouldn't attend his wedding because my wife wasn't invited? My best friend from college, male 26, and I, male 25, are both having weddings this year, his in June and mine in November. Mine is really more of just a party because I married my wife at the courthouse about a year ago because we didn't want to wait until we could afford the party to commit to each other. He invited me to his wedding, but not my wife. I waited until his deadline for RSVPs and then told him I wouldn't attend because my wife and I go to events together, or we don't go because she's the woman behind me, as I am the man behind her, and we are effectively a unit. I know I shouldn't have waited, but I wanted to try and push off an uncomfortable conversation. He blew up on me and accused me of always choosing others over him and not being a decent friend or caring about him at all. He said that he didn't invite my wife because there physically wasn't enough space at the venue and that I wasn't the only one affected by this. He went on to essentially say that I need to not be a codependent and that he wasn't asking me to go on a 6-month deployment for my family, but that I needed to be there for him to be a good friend. I eventually caved because he made me feel bad and I said I'd go without my wife, also after I talked to my wife about it. But my thought now is that if you plan a wedding at a physically small space, it's okay to invite just me. Just by the same token, don't be upset when I decline because you made your bed type of deal. It's also worth noting I had a similar constraint on my wedding, but cut 2 family members to allow both he and his wife to have seats at my wedding. Context: I'm a government controls engineer working on a very expensive, to the tune of higher-ups giving updates to Congress, very time-consuming project currently. I'm not at the top of the chain, but I've been able to advance my career very quickly, so I'm in a position of responsibility. I missed his bachelor party because I needed to travel for a work meeting. He's very much still the Chad bro, let's get drunk type, and I'm not anymore. I have a wife. I have 2 kids who are the absolute most important thing to me. I don't respond to his texts nearly as often or as quickly, and I don't endlessly play video games with our old group like I used to. So I think it's fair for him to feel he's not as important, because while I love him, he also just isn't compared to my career, but most of all, my family. Am I the jerk for saying I wouldn't go, and now thinking I should take back my offer to go after having time to think about it? Edit. I know I'm preachy, so I'll be brief. My wife and I are not attached at the hip. To clarify, weddings, funerals, graduations, work dinners, we go to together. Formal events? If it's girls' night or boys' night level stuff, we have no problem being apart. I also did not send in an RSVP. I let the automatic system do it for me. The website read, RSVP here. No submission will be counted as will not attend at deadline. In my opinion, that reflects very poorly on me in an effort to be fair. Edit. I'm not going to his wedding and he's not going to mine. The friendship has been terminated. Not for just this, but an accumulation of reasons. People asked why I waited to respond knowing it was wrong. I was weak, essentially, and events from our history made me procrastinate because I knew in any event it wouldn't be a good conversation. Not an excuse, and I know I messed up there. I think this was an everyone sucks here, even with all the not the jerks, and I was called on behaviors I have that aren't good, that I now recognize and I agree with. Not the jerk. He's allowed to not invite your wife, but you are also allowed to choose not to go without her. Your friends need to live with the consequences of his actions. You know, sometimes friends cause you way more trouble than they're worth. How my wife ruined her mom's Mother's Day by treating her like a mom. My mother-in-law is an annoying person to say it in the nicest way. She has extremely low self-worth, and she compensates by forcing the world to go around her. As family who interact with her regularly, we're forced to treat her like a queen. Every day, every minute. If we don't, then there will be drama. All the way from pouting, going to her room, fainting, leaving the house to go full-blown breakdown, including saying, "Why should I live on this planet anymore if no one cares about me?" Yeah, to see an old lady say something like this because we don't give her a few minutes of attention is a bizarre thing to witness. So it's exhausting to be around her, but what else can my wife and sister-in-law do? She is their mom, and they both try their darn best to make her feel special. But they would also like to interact with her as their mom too, not just as some out-of-touch royalty. They would like to crack jokes, chat about general things, and share their problems, not having to be constantly worried what statement might tick her off. When they were kids in her orbit, things were fine as she controlled them, and that made her feel that she was the center of attention. Now they're married and have families of their own, and because she's not the anchor of the family, she started becoming more and more demeaning, that we perform some elaborate rituals to make her feel special. That's extremely exhausting. So on to the actual event itself. Mother-in-law and father-in-law have traveled to our country and are staying with us for a short time to help with the kids, as we all live halfway across the globe. My wife planned an elaborate Mother's Day event centered around mother-in-law, even though she herself is a mom too. This included lunch in a popular ethnic cuisine restaurant. By the way, had she not planned it herself, there will be a snarky comment at the end of the day saying, "Seems you don't care about your mom enough to plan something for me. I was waiting the whole day for you to do something." Anyway, morning went uneventful as we had been pampering the grown-up toddler and mother-in-law was quite jubilant. We go to the restaurant and I and our eldest one go in to set up the table as my wife is bringing the others, mother-in-law, father-in-law, and our little one. My 2-year-old, the real toddler, decides to throw a tantrum for toddler reasons, but then mother-in-law sees this beautiful garden in front of the restaurant and wants my wife to take her pic. Mother-in-law doesn't care about anything and forces my wife to take several pics as my wife is holding a crying, fussing, and kicking toddler in her hip. Having basked in the glory of being in the center of attention, mother-in-law is satisfied enough. They all come inside. My wife is ticked from the events, but tries her best to be cheerful. Waiter comes in to take the order, and right then, mother-in-law decides to go to the restroom. My wife asks her to order before going, as the kids will get hangry if we wait too long. Big mistake my wife did was she asked in a normal tone, a regular conversational tone, instead of a pleading or a pleasing pampering tone. How dare we order her royalty on what to do? That was strike one. As me and my wife are looking at the bazillion choices and trying to order for our kids, ourselves, our spice level, etc., we got absorbed into ordering without paying attention to the most important person. Mother-in-law wasn't the center of attention for 2 full minutes. How dare we? That's strike two. We don't notice that and ask her what she wants. She asks if they have a particular ethnic dish, which is a regular staple we have almost every day at home, like a grilled cheese. That too in an indifferent, meek tone. She was indirectly implying that she's just a nobody because of strikes 1 and 2, so she's ordering some peasant food. That was our cue to realize our mistake and beg her forgiveness and bring the world back into alignment before things go downhill. We fail to notice that change in tone, which is strike 3. Instead, my wife suggests, "Mom, we have that almost every day at home, so why don't you?" Mother-in-law cuts her off, saying, "I know that. Are you saying I don't know that?" and storms off to the restroom. Wow, she sounds exhausting. We're all figuring out what just happened and we finish ordering. Mother-in-law comes back and unloads onto my wife about how she just disrespected her. We brought her to this country, and even since then, my wife has made it her mission to do nothing but continuously humiliate her, and mother-in-law starts crying. I quickly realized what had conspired, but my innocent wife, whose heart is only filled with love and not such evil games, doesn't realize drama my mother-in-law wants. Instead, she's trying to understand how suggesting that the dish is a regular staple at home is humiliating, and mother-in-law goes, "You are implying I'm dumb and don't even know this. You have ruined my Mother's Day. All daughters do special things on the Mother's Day, and here you are ruining mine." And a few other ridiculous quotes. My wife says again and again, that's just a regular thing to say to your mom, but mother-in-law is adamant that my wife humiliated her by implying she's dumb for not knowing it's a staple dish we regularly eat at home, and storms off to sit outside. Seriously, that was the entire discussion for full 5 minutes. It was extremely bizarre to see a 60-year-old woman throwing a tantrum and accusing her daughter because she said it's a regular staple we eat at home. Normally, we would run after her, apologize, and beg her to come back, and keep apologizing throughout the lunch, which is what she wanted after 3 strikes. But this time, we were so over this BS, having been through similar things so many times. We just sat and ate in peace without an extra side of drama. But my wife was heartbroken. She does all this planning, wanted to be a good daughter, wanted her mom to feel special, and in the end has ruined her Mother's Day by talking to her mom as a mom and not as a royalty? So a 60-year-old woman started crying in the middle of a lunch rush in a popular restaurant, all because we didn't give her attention for 5 minutes, while we were busy ordering food for our kids. There are hundreds of such stories, but this is one of the clearest. What the heck just happened? My daughter demands I raise her babies, but I want to retire in peace. I, 58 female, and my husband, Rob, who's 61, have 2 kids, Erica, who's 35, and Mike, who's 30. Both kids are married, but Erica and her husband, Steve, who's 38, live nearby us, and this issue concerns them. They work full-time and they have 2 kids, who are 5 and 4 years old. 5 years ago, my daughter asked my husband and me if we would be willing to become their full-time childcare so she could continue to work and afford their comfortable life. We agreed, but we didn't discuss much more than watching the baby and their expectations. I was a teacher and retired 2 years before I could take my pension, so my husband continued to work, and we made a few sacrifices like vacations and adding to our savings, but we were able to make it work so I could take my full pension at 55 and my husband retired a year later. Our arrangement worked and we enjoyed having the kids, except by year 3, 2020, we started to feel like they were taking advantage of our help. In 2020, during the lockdown, they both were working from home. They expected us to keep the kids all day, and we wanted to split time with them since their preschool and daycare was closed. We settled on 2 with them and 3 with us, and my son-in-law complained about it pretty much every day. Things got better when the kids were able to go back to school. Fast forward to year 4, 2021, we have a bit of a blow-up over kindergarten. My daughter did not want her 5-year-old son to start school in the unknown, but I insisted that he needed to go because I needed the break. I also asked for her 4-year-old to spend more time at the preschool and daycare program. Son-in-law complained about the cost, but I pushed anyway. They relented, and then this past spring, son-in-law pushed for us to take the kids for a week so they could go on a vacation. We said they had to take the kids, and he said, "We can't afford it." No one went on vacation. Maybe that's too much background, but I feel like the context is important for what I said. My daughter and I were casually having a conversation the other day, and she mentions that she had a doctor's appointment and tests. I asked if everything was okay, and she said Steve and her were trying for baby number 3. I asked her what her childcare plan was, and she looked at me like I was crazy and said us. I said that it would have been nice if she had told me this before trying for another baby. She said it's none of my business. I said it is if I'm providing 5 more years of babysitting. I then told her that we were not a viable childcare option for a new baby and begged her to reconsider. Her 4-year-old is going off to kindergarten. We feel like we're getting our days back to some extent and refuse to start all over again with an infant. Erica said we are making her choose between her dream of having 3 kids and financial stability. I argued that she has 2 beautiful kids already and they are financially stable. They shouldn't ruin that with another baby. I might be the jerk because Erica feels like we should have told her sooner. I feel like I'm not because I never agreed to a lifetime of raising their kids. Edit. We will continue to watch our 2 grandkids after school and during the summer as this is what we have agreed to and we enjoy it. School provides a nice break for us and then we do fun things with the kids in the summer. We just don't want to start over again with another baby. Edit 2. Just to add a bit more context, and I want to answer some of the comments I'm seeing a lot. We are not paid and we didn't ask to be. I retired early, but would have stayed longer if we didn't watch our grandkids. I probably would have put in another 5 years or so because I loved my job, so putting those 5 years into helping my daughter and grandkids wasn't a problem. My husband and I did a good job of preparing for retirement and felt that we could swing it. We do take time for ourselves. We require 5 weeks a year at a minimum to travel, visit our son or other family. We settled on 5 because our daughter gets 3 weeks of vacation a year and son-in-law gets 2. At first, son-in-law complained that him and my daughter would never get a vacation together. We said that they would just simply have to arrange other care options if they want time together, so we could still have our 5 weeks. We do hold them to this, and one time in the past 5 years, his parents came down to stay with them and watch the kids during that week we were away. In terms of telling her to not have another baby, I was trying to make her see everything she does have and to focus less on what she doesn't have. Lastly, my daughter and son-in-law have plenty of money and are responsible when it comes to costs. If anything, my son-in-law is cheap, so I think their version of stability and many others would be very different.
And welcome aboard to our newest subscribers, Ramsey, Megan, and Ling. Subscribe now and tick the bell for all notifications, and you could get a shout out in our next video.
And this video right here, the one that just popped up, you gotta come see this next. You will not believe what Karen does in that one.